All right, just moments ago, President Trump issued a new statement on crime in Chicago with a new threat to have federal involvement to battle that crime. He called Chicago, quote, the worst and most dangerous city in the world by far, and said, I will solve the crime problem fast, just like I did in D.C. Chicago will soon be safe again. Now, it is important to note that Chicago does not rank in the top 10 of cities in the U.S. in terms of violent crime rates, doesn't even rank in the top 20 of cities with populations of 250,000 or more. And there are a lot of cities in red states where the president is not suggesting sending the National Guard or taking over federal involvement. Memphis, Nashville, you have cities in Missouri as well. Now, that said, it was a violent weekend in Chicago. At least 56 people were shot, 7 killed, though overall violent crime is down in Chicago from this time last year. With us now, Congressman Chuy Garcia, a Democrat from Illinois. His district includes parts of Chicago. Congressman, nice to see you this morning. So how about the contrast? Talk to us about the contrast. The president's wrong that Chicago is the most dangerous city in the world, let alone the United States. It's not in the top 20, but it was a violent weekend in the city, more violent than I'm sure you would like.
It was a violent weekend without a doubt, but the shootings that occurred not only in the city, but in outlying suburbs as well. Nevertheless, over the past year and a half, crime, especially serious crime like homicides and shootings, have been trending down, as they have in cities like LA and, of course, Washington, D.C. It's very clear that what the president is doing is not about public safety. It's not about law and order. It's a show of force. It is to intimidate, it's to control, and to instill fear in cities that oppose him.
But what should, in your mind, or how could the federal government help you fight crime? Because surely the goal is to reduce the numbers that you saw this weekend. And couldn't the federal government be helpful there?
Oh, absolutely. One, they could restore the funds that have been cut for violence intervention program, which have been proven to be very effective. It's part of the reason that crime has trended down, especially the most serious categories of violent crime. He could restore funding for mental health. And of course, he could partake in bringing back the funding for healthcare, for nutrition, but especially for mental health, and restore and stop messing with the funding for public education, as was attempted only a month ago for schools in the region across Illinois. These are the types of investments that are needed to most effectively prevent and interrupt crime before it happens, especially violent shootings.
Not a greater law enforcement presence that could involve maybe the help of the National Guard?
No. If you wanted to help local law enforcement prevent crime, fight crime, and go after bad guys, you would coordinate with our governor, with the mayor as well. None of that has happened. We're still guessing about what type of mobilization there will be of federal agents coming to Chicago, or if the National Guard will be called to Chicago or to Illinois. Let's be clear. The Constitution and federal laws say that only when there is an insurrection, when there is rioting, when there is a mass civil unrest, as the conditions for potential mobilization of the Guard, but that is with the consent of Congress. None of that has happened. What Trump is seeking to do is to create a condition where there is chaos, where there's confusion, and potentially where clashes occur because the Guard is not needed here. And federal agents need to respect how they enforce the law, beginning with identifying themselves and taking off their masks. That's what we require of law enforcement everywhere. That should be the norm.
Now, separate, though connected to this, there is expected to be some kind of an immigration crackdown in Chicago, which would involve a federal president. But up until this point, Governor Pritzker's office, the city's office, there's been no communication with the federal government. So how do you think they are preparing when they're basically flying blind?
We don't know. We've only heard suggestions coming out of the White House by people like Stephen Miller and Tom Homan, but it's very clear that this is simply an escalation of an attack on Chicago to distract against the Epstein files that could potentially implicate the president and maybe some of his cronies. It's also a distraction from the California redistricting responding to the mass violation of the Voting Rights Act in Texas. And of course, it's a sign of opposition to the mobilization that's occurred in DC that rejects Trump. And of course, yesterday we saw in actions on Labor Day across the nation opposing Trump, just like on No King's Day and the hands-off rallies that have occurred across America, being among the largest in the nation's history.
Very quickly, just I should say, nothing that we have seen implicates President Trump in any way with the Epstein files, and he hasn't been connected to any of the legal issues surrounding that. But very, very quickly at the end here, there's an issue of a possible government shutdown here. Some Democrats would like to fight and be seen as fighting. Are you willing to shut down the government at the end of this month?
I am willing to fight to protect the power and authority of Article 1, which states that Congress will initiate and create a budget that the president is seeking to rescind, to take away unilaterally. That is a violation of our most important right that is guaranteed by the Constitution. And how can you negotiate a budget in good faith when the president is seeking to go around Congress and undermine our authority? That's bad faith. That's not how you create a budget, and certainly one that endangers a potential government shutdown that Republicans will have to answer for.
Congressman Garcia, nice to see you today. Thanks so much for being with us. Kate?